playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
1-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire on SportsGrid. Craig Mish back with you here on our midweek edition of the show. And wouldn't you know, it's good timing because the National Basketball Association and the NBA Finals are back. We'll have a preview of the Boston Celtics and Dallas Mavericks. We've got Gilbert McGregor coming up on the show in just a little bit. Also, the U.S. Open getting ready to start, and the National Hockey League has a day off. We're going to break down the very latest in ratings with Simon Applebaum of the podcast tomorrow. Will be televised. Our guest contributor from Legal Sports Report is Jim Gazzale. We'll talk about a little horse racing, some ramifications from the Belmont moving to Saratoga, and an update on a very key player from Dr. Chow in the National Basketball Association. That's where we're going to begin because Kristaps Porzingis, at the very least, looks to potentially be out for a period of time. How long is to be determined. The team right now is saying that he suffered what's called a rare injury to his leg. We don't know exactly what that is. Dr. Chow will tell us in about 10 minutes. He's day-to-day for the finals. They're sort of calling it like a calf strain. It's kind of hard to describe because he had this in the second quarter of Boston's Game 4 against the Miami Heat, and naturally he came back from that. Still to be determined as to whether or not he's going to play. Now, again, the last 24 hours kind of dicey. We know the Celtics are going to need him at some point in the series. The question is what the procedure will be getting him back on the court, potentially for Game 3, Game 4, or if a Game 5 is played. Here is the head coach of the Celtics, Joe Mazzulla, who was asked about what's next.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing anything and everything he can to be ready for the game tomorrow. It's a serious injury. And at the end of the day, our team and the medical team is not going to put him in any bad situations. And so we've taken a decision to play out of his hands because the importance of him. And so he's going to do everything he can to play, and then we're going to leave it up to our medical team. And that's really it.
Yeah, and right now it seems as though they're saying that he could potentially play, but it still remains to be seen. As far as Porzingis himself is concerned, he is ruling nothing out for Game 3, Game 4, and even the remainder of the playoffs. Basically, he's leaning on the medical staff, as he told the media yesterday.
It's kind of a random situation, yeah, and I felt something, and now I have to deal with it. So, as we said, yeah, it's going to be day to day. and see how I am tomorrow. And obviously, I'm going to do everything I can to be out there tomorrow. And we'll see.
Are you optimistic?
I am, of course. I have to be. I'm optimistic. As I said, I will do everything I can to be out there tomorrow. And yeah, we'll see.
What would you have to endure when it comes to that? It's just a pain threshold at this point. Can you do more damage to it if you do play in these finals?
I don't know. I don't know the specifics. But, you know, that's something I leave in the medical staff's hands to determine whether, you know, I can go or no. But from my side, like, as I said, you know, nothing's going to stop me unless, you know, I'm told not to or not allowed to play. So that's the only reason I will not be out there. But
there's Kristaps Porzingis. Now, as far as an expert on the field of this injury, we have our very own Dr. Chow weighing in on what the future could hold for Porzingis. In fact, Chow seems to be skeptical that he will suit up tonight.
At this point, we fully expect Kristaps Porzingis to miss the rest of the NBA Finals, even though he's listed as day-to-day. Day-to-day may mean he can post up and shoot a three, but don't see him being a defensive force or rim protector or being able to move around effectively with this posterior tibialis tendon dislocation. Remember, it's a torn medial retinaculum, which is a sheath that holds the tendon behind the medial or inside of the ankle. That tendon is flipped over the top and will require surgery to fix it. Dealt with it before in football and basketball players, unable to play through.
All right, that's our very own Dr. Chow. Now, what is Porzingis worth in terms of the point spread? This is something I'm always interested in. Those of you who watch the show know I bring this up a lot. It looks like he's worth a point because the Dallas Mavericks have now moved up to 2.5-point favorites over on the FanDuel Sportsbook as they are up against it. The total is 212.5. Again, up from 1.5 to 2.5 in tonight's game this evening. Meanwhile, injuries continue in the finals as Luka Doncic has a pain-killing injection to numb the area of a thoracic contusion. I'm not the medical expert, but that's what they're calling it after game 2. He'll receive another injection before game 3 as they try to get their first win of the series. He's been dealing with a sprained right knee since the Mavs' third game of the postseason, and also with some left ankle soreness. So Luka a little banged up, but it hasn't affected the point spread in a negative way, at least for them, as they're up to 2.5-point favorites. As I mentioned, the Aces have lost their third straight against the Lynx, the final 100-86 in the WNBA. First time the Aces have lost 3 in a row, by the way, since 2019. Mystics and the Dream final 87-68. Mystics have not had a good year, to say the least. Some sad news from the National Basketball Association. Former NBA player and Hall of Famer and also the architect of many championship seasons in LA, Jerry West, has passed away at the age of 86. Over to Major League Baseball we go, and the Paul Skeens show rolls on. Another great outing yesterday against the Cardinals, a game that went all the way down to the final out. He threw 6 1/3 scoreless innings, got over 100 pitches, and Pittsburgh won the game 2-1, despite David Bednar giving up a home run in the 9th inning to Nolan Gorman. 2-1 the final. The Pirates end up picking up another win behind Paul Skeens. Meanwhile, all-star catcher JT Realmuto is going to have knee surgery and miss an extended period of time. His knee has been sore for the majority of the season. Arguably one of the best catchers in baseball still, if not the very best, joins Trey Turner on the injured list for the Phillies and also Brandon Marsh. Of course, the Phillies have a 10-game lead in the division, and they'll hope to get JT back for the second half of the season. The Yankees crushed the Royals 10-1 yesterday. Giancarlo Stanton hit the longest home run I've seen all season, 443 to dead center field, but only to be outmatched by his teammate, Aaron Judge. He had another home run. He's got 25 home runs on the season, on pace for 60-something again. Aaron Judge has just been incredible since the calendar turned to May. And since being designated for assignment, Kevin Biggio has now been traded, according to ESPN, to the Los Angeles Dodgers. It'll be a very small deal, and Biggio potentially be a backup player for the Dodgers as well. As the PGA Tour swings toward the U.S. Open tomorrow, John Rahm, we talked about on the show yesterday morning, said that he wasn't feeling great with a sore on one of his toes. And now yesterday, right after that, several hours later after his press conference, said he's not going to play. So he is out for the U.S. Open. Jon Rahm not going to participate this weekend. Meanwhile, how about the upcoming July 4th celebration and the Nathan's hot dog eating contest? Joey Chestnut is not going to participate as he has chosen to represent another hot dog brand and therefore can't eat. Did I say that right? Can't eat. Yeah, that sounds right. In Coney Island. They said they're devastated to learn that Chestnut has chosen to represent a rival brand, of course, to Nathan's, and is out. I mean, this is like sort of a crazy story. By the way, we still have some time until July 4th. Can they get this going right? No way they can have a hot dog contest without Joey Chestnut. Rafael Nadal, Carlos Alcaraz, they'll play doubles in the 2024 Olympics in Paris. Nadal will be back. He's been limited the last couple of years because of injuries. He said the games were his focus, and he'll skip Wimbledon. So it's great to have Rafael Nadal back on the court in Paris. In addition, Aaron Rodgers of the New York Jets is skipping all of the Jets' mandatory minicamp this week because he prefers to be somewhere else, according to a report, which is his choice. What that exactly is, I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm just giving you what I was told. No Aaron Rodgers at camp this week. We'll get to the NBA coming up next. How will the Porzingis injury affect the Mavericks tonight? Gilbert McGregor will join us next to tell us whether the Mavs still stand a chance in the series. Don't go away.
Playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
3-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White. You got, literally, I would say what? 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
We've got some intrigue going into tonight's NBA Finals game on the side of the Boston Celtics. Now, they're up 2-0 in the series, but the series now moves to Dallas, where the Mavericks probably have to win this game if they're going to even compete in the finals, because generally speaking, you go down 0-3, you may make a series of it, but nobody wins in the history of the NBA. So let's get the very latest with Gilbert McGregor of Sporting News. And Gilbert, to me, what's intriguing tonight is Porzingis with this injury that he has that's really hard to define as far as what it is. And we also saw the point spread change, and Dallas has moved up to 2.5-point favorites from 1.5, which tells me that Porzingis, let's be honest, is not a critical player to Boston's overall success to win. Right now, it stands to reason that he's worth a point. I would ask you this to start with. If they're determined that he doesn't play tonight, Gilbert, do you think the spread moves at all more? Do you think it moves another half? Like, is he worth more than that? Or is this just kind of telling us he's out tonight? What do you think?
I think it would move more. I think what it's kind of telling us right now is that it does really feel like a toss-up. I'm not the only one, I'm sure, that had to cross-reference WebMD when I found out whatever that hard-to-explain injury it is that he's dealing with, even hard to kind of pronounce. But I think that it shows that he's actually 50-50 for this one. He said that he's going to do whatever it takes to get on the floor, and the only thing that will stop him will be Boston's medical team. And some people make it seem like it's something that's going to be really serious, and others are making it seem like it's something he might be able to play through. So I think when we get more clarity on his status and availability for tonight, we might see things shift because he's so important. He's had 2 big games. His impact as a scorer, but also a rim protector and defender has been huge in this series.
Okay, so maybe more for you than I anticipated. I didn't really think that was the case. Again, when the line only moves a point, to me, it's not a lot. But again, we'll see tonight, and we'll see if he is out, Gilbert, it sounds like you think that the line could move even more. Maybe it goes to 3. So this would be the time clearly to take Dallas if you feel that they're going to win and cover the game tonight. Do you feel that way, by the way, before we move on to how many games this ends up going and all that stuff? We got a lot of fun odds to go over. I want to get that first from you, though.
I do think so. This is an absolute must win. You said it already. No NBA team has ever come back from a 3-0 series deficit. And Dallas does have a really thin margin of error. And they had a golden opportunity in game 2, but could not take advantage of it. I think role players will play better when they get back to Dallas. And guys not named Luka Doncic shot 2 of 17 from 3 in game 2. So I think they should be better in this one. And that should deliver a win.
I seem to remember the Houston Rockets once upon a time coming back from something. Maybe it was down 0-2, Rudy Tomjanovich and all of that. I seem to remember that happening. I don't remember exactly what that was. I'll have to peek my history lesson in basketball. Okay, so if there's a sweep and it ends in 4, you're going to get 3-1. The FanDuel Sportsbook is telling you that's not going to happen. They're telling you that this is going to go 5. And maybe even potentially longer than that. And look at 7 right there, Gilbert, plus 250, right? Like that tells you that if you really want to take Dallas, you may want to do it now because I don't think that you're going to get these same odds for a deeper series if they win tonight. Tonight's probably the time.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's a reflection of the fact that Dallas has the best player in this series. Luka Doncic, despite what he's playing through, is still good enough to deliver a team to a few wins. So I think that what that's saying is if the momentum starts to shift the Mavs' way, I think people might start to freak out a little bit and they might continue to roll. Because when you go to a Game 7 situation, usually the team with the best player wins. We've seen it time and time again in the NBA history. So it feels like Boston has to get their work done in 5 or 6 games or it's really anybody's series.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, you came on the show. We talked about the MVP of the finals. We did this about a week ago, and you mentioned Jaylen Brown as some nice odds. I believe it was 4 or 5, even 6-1 to win the MVP. We've seen a significant shift. In fact, you can probably make the case for any 3 players on Boston at this point with just potentially 2 games to go. I mean, Tatum was minus money. He's now plus money, and he's right there with Jaylen Brown to win the MVP. Look at Drew Holiday. He's moved all the way up to 5-1, and if Dallas somehow comes back to win, it's going to be Luka. We know that. I'm seeing either plus 650, plus 600, depending on when you play it or where you play it as well. So no longer great odds on Jaylen Brown anymore. Hopefully people took advantage of that last week.
Absolutely. Coming into the series, it felt like it was this Boston team is just so talented across the board, and they are a sum of all the parts. And that's what we've seen in games 1 and 2. Now I'm kind of intrigued by that Drew Holiday because, you kind of think about the precedent with Andre Iguodala, almost a decade ago. The defense that he's playing on Kyrie Irving, the big game that he had in game 2. If he has a few more of those big performances because he's playing really well off of his teammates, I could see some value there, but obviously a lot has to happen in order for that to happen. I do expect Jason Tatum to have some big games out. The series has shifted to Dallas.
All right, finally, we got 2 Lakers stories today to cover here, if we can, real quick, Gilbert. The first is, of course, Jerry West passes away at the age of 86, one of the greatest players in the history of the NBA. He's the logo of the NBA for people who are not familiar, and, of course, went on helping out another NBA team in the future as well. The other story is that the Lakers are still looking for a new head coach here as Dan Hurley goes back to Connecticut. James Borrego is the one name it looks like who has interviewed at this point. Gilbert, your guess is as good as mine, right? Like once a coach turns something down, I think internally you go back to the drawing board, don't you?
Absolutely. First on Jerry West, he's an icon, the logo, Mr. Clutch. It's hard to find very many people that had a greater impact on the game of basketball. Talk about his playing career, but also his time as an executive with the Lakers, Warriors, Grizzlies, and Clippers up until this past year. And that kind of goes hand in hand with this Lakers coaching search. It does feel like it's right back to square one. There's been a lot of conflicting reporting about, is it JJ Redick? Is it going to be Dan Hurley? Was Dan Hurley just using this to negotiate a bigger deal with UConn? And James Borrego certainly seems like the guy. He's a brilliant offensive mind. He's done a great job revitalizing the offense with the Pelicans as their associate head coach. But he has another suitor in Cleveland as well. So the Lakers want to hire somebody before the draft, which is 2 weeks from today, actually. But I think they have their work cut out for them because a lot of pressure comes with that Lakers job, and it's not as glamorous as it may seem on the surface.
Gilbert, I got the new coach for you for the Lakers. You want me to give it to you? I got it for
Who's
you.
that?
Darvin Ham.
He can handle it.
Why
he
not?
Can handle it. Why
Just
not?
call him. Just call him. He did a good job when he was there. Hey, just come on back. We made a mistake. Gilbert, great to have you on the program. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, SportsGrid Sound Off is coming up next. Tight end of the Kansas City Chiefs. Is he retiring anytime soon? Don't think so.
Playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
20-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White. You got literally, I would say what? 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach. That, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire on SportsGrid. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Right now, the Boston Celtics are in a great position to capture an NBA championship, but it's going to run through Dallas the next couple of games. In fact, they play again tonight in the Lone Star State. The Mavericks, as we mentioned earlier in the show, 2.5-point favorites going into the game. One of the potential favorites to win the Finals MVP is the guy who just won it the previous series in the conference finals. That, of course, is Jaylen Brown. And Brown says that rather than thinking the team is up 2-0, getting ready to close it out, they're going to pretend like they're down 0-2 in the series. Take a listen.
For me, it's different for every individual, but for me, it's almost like you got to trick your mind, almost in a sense, like you almost got to play like you down 0-2 rather than up. And that's hard to do, but like you got to go into that mind frame, that focus is like, nah, we are playing like that, rather than you let comfort, you let, some of those things kind of seep in. So you just try to stay focused and try to harness the mind as much as you can, because the mind is a powerful thing, and it's hard to grasp, some of those things as you are in taking them. But if you can kind of focus your mind on what you wanted to focus on, you'll be surprised at what you can do.
It's sort of funny how the difference between us, like people, I mean, I guess I am in the media, it's fair to say, people in the media and talk show hosts as opposed to what the players actually think. Because it's like we just talked to Gilbert McGregor about, hey, they don't have to play Porzingis tonight. They're up 2-0. They can afford to not play him. And meanwhile, you have a player basically right now saying the exact opposite of everything that we're saying here on the show. Kind of funny how that works, how we really know nothing. Okay, well, Travis Kelce, one of the most popular players now in the National Football League, outside of his playing ability at tight end, has the most popular girlfriend in the world, too, and Taylor Swift. Travis Kelce is 34 years old, still playing at a very high level. Some question last season, during the season, is it possible that if the Chiefs won another championship, would Kelce potentially retire at the end of the season? We've seen another tight end in the NFL, by the way, retire and unretire, retire and unretire, kind of like a quarterback, too. And Rob Gronkowski, but Kelce makes no mistake about it. As long as he can still suit up, he ain't going anywhere.
I can't put a time frame on it, man. I love coming to work every single day. Obviously, I know that there's opportunities outside of football for me, and I think you got to keep in perspective that I'm still a little kid when I come into this building, man. I know I'm 34 years old, about to be 35, but I have a love to do this right here in the middle of the heat in June. I love coming to work every single day and doing this. So I'm going to do it till the wheels fall off, and hopefully that doesn't happen anytime soon. But I can definitely understand that it's towards the end of the road than it is the beginning of it. And I just got to make sure I'm set up for after football as well.
Yeah, and Kelce, 34 years old, his brother just retired, now is going to be in broadcasting. The thing with Kelce is that as long as his quarterback is still going, and Patrick Mahomes is going to go for a long time, even longer than Kelce, really no reason to stop playing. So I would imagine you'll see Kelce at 35, at 36, maybe 37 too, and then we'll see. I mean, Tony Gonzalez played at a very high level, Hall of Famer for a long period of time playing with Kansas City, speaking of which, and then going on to the Atlanta Falcons. All right, finally, let's check in with our social media team. Speaking of the NFL, is it possible that there's another team that could challenge the Chiefs this season? Christian DeBlock thinks so.
CJ Stroud, in year 2, will help the Texans take a step forward and win the AFC. Right now, the Chiefs are at the top of the conference, and then there's a sizable gap between them and that next tier of teams. CJ may not be at the level of Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, or Josh Allen just yet, but with the pieces surrounding him, the Texans can go on a run in the postseason. Nico Collins nearly went for 1,300 receiving yards in a career year last season, and Stephon Diggs, he'll want to bounce back after the way things ended in Buffalo. And oh, by the way, don't forget about Tank Dell, Joe Mixon, and Dalton Schultz. Good luck. Some will have questions about their defense, but they added Danielle Hunter, who had 16.5 sacks for the Vikings last season. I think his presence on the line will pay dividends. Back to you, Craig.
All right, thanks, Christian. Naturally, we'll see what happens in the AFC, and Houston could be Kansas City's chief contender going into the 2024 NFL season. We'll take a quick break here on the show. Jim Gazzale joins us next, the very latest on some of the sports betting providers' success, failure. Find out next.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
3-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White. You got, literally, I would say what? 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. ESPN Bet jumped into the betting stratosphere over the past year, hoping to get a big footprint in the sports betting market. At the time, saying that they were hoping not just to jump into like the number 3 spot, but to be the number 1 overall as far as sports betting providers are concerned. What has that meant to their success over the past few months? Let's check in with Jim Gazzale of Legal Sports Report. And Jim, we heard all the noise about ESPN Bet. We're going to take over. We're going to be right there. I mean, everyone's fighting for that number 3, right? If indeed you believe that FanDuel, the numbers say it, that FanDuel is number 1 or DraftKings number 1. Let's just say that they interchange each other. There was really an opening for 3, BetMGM, maybe some others. Jim, it does not appear that ESPN Bet is in line to jump into that number 3 spot at the very least, does it?
No, Craig, not at least in Maryland, which we saw their sports betting report come out within the last couple of days, and ESPN Bet saw its share of online handle drop to its lowest point so far this year at 4%. ESPN Bet handling $16.8 million in Maryland in May out of the total, nearly $420 million there market wide. So 4% in May, which is a considerable drop off from April, where they had about 7.5% of the online market in terms of handle. They did clear, $1.4 million in revenue. They held about 8.5%, which is, pretty in line with, industry average, I guess we could say. And I really think that there's two sort of points to this. FanDuel, DraftKings obviously have had a several-year head start. We saw ESPN Bet launch midway through November, towards the end of last year, in more than a dozen markets, and they had that heavy promotional push. So certainly the several-year head start that FanDuel and DraftKings had is certainly a factor. And also, too, talking to some industry people, the product side is needs to come up a little bit with ESPN Bet. And Penn Interactive, their CEO, Jay Snowden, had talked about in recent months that his team, his tech team, is all in on enhancing their parlay product in advance of the football season. So a lot remains to be seen as we get through the summer and then into the fall with college football and NFL betting returning to the sports wagering menu. And I think we'll get a pretty good indication of just how successful ESPN Bet can be once that new parlay product offering is rolled out here in September and October. FanDuel, on the other hand, in Maryland, they had market highs in handle, $195.2 million bet through the FanDuel Sportsbook app. They held 15%, well above industry average, and that turned into $27.2 million in revenue for FanDuel. $7 million the Maryland sportsbooks combined to send back to the state in a tax payment there, the sports betting tax. $7 million in May, second most ever in a month for Maryland sportsbooks since that market opened up in December of 2021, Craig.
Yeah, and I think right now that's something to watch, especially in other states as well, to see if ESPN Bet can at least maintain some of the momentum that they got earlier in the beginning quarter one of our 2024 year. All right, now let's dive into New York. Good news, on the other hand, for Fanatics. Now, naturally, I think, Jim, some of the reporting here obviously has to be taken with a grain of salt because when a new company jumps into the marketplace, they're able to give out promotions and codes and things like that for people who have not joined their sportsbook for the first time. It's really more interesting to me to see how over time, if that's able to be maintained. So do you think that that is part of the reason why Fanatics has had this early success, new to the market, new to entry, giving out these new promos, or is it just simply put, they're doing a great job? Maybe a combination of both.
Yeah, probably a combination of both, Craig. And unfortunately, in New York, we don't get to see exactly how many promotional dollars these sportsbooks are offering up on a monthly basis. So, interestingly enough, we did see PointsBet, which obviously is now Fanatics. That last month where they were still operating as PointsBet in New York, they had one of their most successful months ever. So now $71.7 million for Fanatics in May handle in New York. They had their winningest month ever with $7 million in revenue. So certainly on a bit of a positive trend for Fanatics in New York. Overall, all of the sportsbooks combined to produce $203.3 million in May revenue, just shy of $2 billion in bets combined across the market. An interesting thing, too, that happened in May was overall handle increased from April, which is something that you don't typically see in sports betting markets across the country. As we get deeper and deeper into the summer, there's less and less sort of mainstream sports to wager on. So I thought that was at least a bit interesting that handle did tick upwards in May from April. It was also the second time that sportsbooks cleared more than $200 million in revenue in a single month. The last time was earlier this year in January, $211.5 million collectively in revenue for the sportsbooks. Just the big sort of numbers coming out of that $203.3 million revenue haul. FanDuel, $88 million, DraftKings, $84.2 million. And DraftKings did outhandle FanDuel in May in New York for the first time since September, Craig.
All right. Well, good news there. Let's close out with some more good news for the Triple Crown, which comes to an end in Saratoga last week, the Belmont Stakes last week. Jim, I know you had a close eye on that. It seems as though for any demise that they're saying that horse racing is occurring, the finances speak otherwise. Very exciting event. We had a very big long shot winner, I know, this past week too, and the numbers seem to be ticking up.
Yeah, overall, the Triple Crown, those three races, the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont, collectively had their highest handle ever when you combine the three. Each of them posted year-over-year handle gains. The Belmont closing out the Triple Crown season on Saturday with $60.9 million bet on the race. And interestingly enough, the Belmont Stakes was held at Saratoga, the two strongest racing brands in New York, and that obviously paid dividends for the New York Racing Association. The Derby had record handle, again, $210.7 million. Last month, Preakness, $57.9 million was an uptick over last year, which saw handle reach a three-year low. So collectively, the three combined for the most handle ever throughout the Triple Crown, which is a positive. Now, what's next, I think, for horse betting and the horse industry overall, talking to some racetrack executives, talking to some stock analysts, is just how well can horse racing, the tracks, and how well can they integrate with the sports books. We've seen a lot of this growth so far this year come from the sports betting platforms developing their ADWs. DraftKings and Caesars say that a shared wallet like FanDuel has is on the horizon. No definitive timeline for that, but hopefully in the near future. And some extra data coming to the FanDuel racing app, as well as the New York Racing Association app. So plenty on the horizon for horse betting as we get into the summer months here, Craig.
All right, Jim. Great stuff, as always. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Craig.
All right, Simon Applebaum's coming up next. Are people watching the NBA Finals in droves? He has the answer. Don't go away.
Playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
20-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White. You got, literally, I would say what? 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Our guest today, as we get ready to send things over to the early line at the top of the hour. Before we do that, we check in with Simon Applebaum of the podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised. Simon is our media critic here and also discusses sports wagering, how it pertains to streaming options and different sports going on around the country. And I know, Simon, welcome back to the show. Your podcast, I know, of course, very popular, and certainly we're very excited to hear that some new episodes are coming as well. Thanks for coming on.
Great, Craig. Great to be on. And yes, we do have a big tomorrow televised announcement. We've been off the air for about a month because of technical issues with Blog Talk Radio. I'm happy to say they are resolved. So next Monday, we'll be back live, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific on Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker, and Tuna Radio. Shortly after on a great podcast site near you. Our opening guest will be Key Wynn. She is the co-star of the acclaimed HBO miniseries, The Sympathizer. A lot of people in the know in the TV world think that show could get some major Emmy nominations later this summer for Best Miniseries. So that's coming your way next Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern Pacific on Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker, Tuna Radio, and our podcast affiliates.
All right. Well, congrats on that. Also, I know that, Simon, you wanted to touch real quick on the passing of Jerry West before we get to some of the ratings. Certainly, there's nobody that could be said to be more of the architect for the success that the Lakers had over a 2-decade period than with Jerry West at the helm there as general manager. Not to mention, I think, Simon going, dating back before me and you, even a great player in the NBA and in the Hall of Fame as well.
One of the all-time greats, Craig, both on the court and off the court. And I had the opportunity to meet him face-to-face at the Western Cable Show when it was a major cable industry event in Anaheim, California, near Disneyland. I believe he's representing Prime Ticket, a regional sports network at the time, as well as the Lakers. Had the chance to talk with him, got my picture taken with him, which I still have at home. He was inside and out a class act on the basketball court, off the basketball court. One of the greatest careers, I think, not just in pro basketball or college basketball, but in all of sports. And he will be genuinely missed by anybody who is a fan of sports overall. Rest in peace, Jerry.
I agreed. Very well said. All right, so let's touch on the NBA and talk about the first couple of games of the NBA Finals. Pretty robust audience, it looks like here, over 12 million, peaking at 14 million. Simon, where does that sort of stand amongst past series, and where do you think the ratings are showing here?
Well, Game 2 on Sunday night was up 3% from a year ago, and it was the highest-rated Game 2 since 2019. Contrast that with Game 1, which was, as you mentioned, 11 million viewers, on ABC, and that was double-digit below Game 1 of last year, and the lowest-rated Game 1 since 2021. I think the key is going to be tonight. If the Celtics win, whether it's by a blowout or a close game, I think the viewership numbers will fall. And I have to tell you, so far in terms of coverage, Mike Breen, who last month won the Play-by-Play Sports Emmy Award here in New York, great job. Doris Burke and J.J. Redick doing very well gelling with each other. However, you mentioned before the break a drove of fans. Well, there are a drove of fans on social media who are very upset with ABC's halftime show. Why? Because it's mostly commercials where you have Malika Andrews, Michael Wilbon, Stephen A. Smith, Bob Myers, and the guest who was one of the stars of the Knicks series with the Pacers, getting just like 2 minutes or less to talk about the first half. Only one highlight, and the rest commercials and promos. It is really ticking off a lot of fans, and ABC has got to be aware of this. This is another example of how commercialism is really screwing up sports coverage, where you have, for example, timeouts. I saw one on the Sunday night game, Game 2, where it was a timeout, and the commercial break was 4.5 to 5 minutes. This was early in the game. Something has got to be done about too many commercial breaks and too many commercials in a break. They are a big turnoff to sports fans. And this halftime thing has got to be addressed, and be addressed starting tonight.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so the NBA Finals continues tonight. We'll see if there is a change in Dallas. We've seen a change in the National Hockey League, meanwhile, Simon, where so many folks are watching the Stanley Cup Finals. And by the way, Simon, this sort of debunks the idea that you have to have a major market involved, at least in my opinion. The Florida Panthers and Sunrise, kind of anonymous for about 2 decades, all of a sudden now are playing great hockey, go to the finals last year. They're up 2-0 this year. And I understand that there's a lot of Canada that's going to be watching because Edmonton is in the finals, but certainly this is not the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Montreal Canadiens playing in the finals either. So what do you attribute this success to?
2 things, Craig. First, it's an all-broadcast final. Remember, last year was the first all-cable final on TNT. This time around, it's all on ABC and is making a difference. And I believe it's also all on broadcast in Canada. When you combine the Canadian audience, which has the Edmonton Oilers to root for, with the ABC audience, which has the Florida Panthers to root for, you have, I believe, 6 to 7 million people watching both Game 1 and Game 2. Something else to keep in mind, close games. The games have been marvelously played, very little fighting, if any, and you have very close games that go down to the wire. And that has been a big, big deal. Plus, Sean McDonough and the commentary crew on ABC ESPN doing a marvelous job.
All right, let's move over now to the French Open. It just wrapped up, and it looks like NBC not going to be broadcasting that anymore. Simon, what happened here?
Well, TNT came in through Warner Bros. Discovery with a 10-year, $650 million deal. That's $6 million a year. They're going to get all the games. The games are going to be running on a mix of TBS, TNT, True TV, and for the first time, Max. It's amazing that just a few decades ago, it was broadcast television that ruled the roost with the tennis Grand Slam event. You had the Australian Open on public television, NBC with the French Open, also with Wimbledon. Remember Breakfast at Wimbledon for many years on Saturday and Sunday, and CBS with the U.S. Open. Now it's a mostly cable and mega content deal. And by the way, what we don't know is whether Tennis Channel, which ran a lot of the weekday coverage of the French Open the last couple of years, whether they'll have anything to do with coverage starting next year.
All right, and finally, let's wrap it up with some Olympics discussion. Simon, I understand what's being made of this with Caitlin Clark not being on Team USA for the women, but I got to tell you, Simon, before they tip off, I think she's going to be on the team as an alternate or something else. I just think this is going to change. We can talk about it and yell and scream about it, but I think they're going to fix this.
I agree with you, Craig. I think there's an atrocious decision by USA Basketball. And two things I have to say. Number one, where is Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the WNBA, not just situation, but on the week before, the Kennedy Carter situation? Why is Carter, for that shove on Caitlin Clark, not gotten a fine of, let's say, $25,000 or a game or two suspension? I will say this about Clark. If she doesn't make the team because of an opening, NBC Sports should consider getting her over to Paris, having her on as an analyst opposite Noah Eagle. She has a great gift of gab, and I think she'd be fantastic in terms of being a commentator.
All right, tomorrow will be televised on Blog Talk Radio, coming very soon. Thanks again, Simon, for coming on. We'll see you soon.
Playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
20-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen and watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White. You got literally, I would say what? 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Just a few weeks until the Nathan's Hot Dog, keyword Nathan's Hot Dog, National Hot Dog Eating Contest occurs on July 4th. But it could look a lot different on that date. That and other topics to discuss as we close you out with some last licks. Say it ain't so. Joey Chestnut, the most popular competitive eating athlete, sure, athlete, why not, of all time, is not going to be competing in the hot dog eating contest because he is signed on representing a rival brand, and at least from what I understand, it's a vegan brand of hot dogs that is not named Nathan's. This is sort of crazy to think that he can't participate. Now, here is the statement that was released by the Major League Eating Company. They say that he's chosen to represent another hot dog brand, and therefore he's not allowed to participate in the contest, which is held in New York. We're devastated to learn that Joey has chosen to represent a rival brand that sells plant-based hot dogs rather than competing in the 2024 Nathan's famous 4th of July hot dog eating contest. Now, Joey Chestnut also had some statements on social media saying that he was disappointed. He owns the top 10 performances at the contest, including eating a record 76 hot dogs and buns in 2021. Now, you remember there was this rivalry with Joey Chestnut and this guy Kobayashi. Do you remember that? Several years ago. But since then, Joey Chestnut has dominated and never loses. And look, in the end, people probably still will attend this contest. It's very popular in Coney Island. My guess is some people will watch it. But I don't even know, what to say the equivalent of this would potentially even be, because it's such an obscure sport, is these eating contests, and to have the face of the sport not participate on the day that it's happened for it feels like 20 years is sort of odd. Maybe they will figure it out, maybe not, but the hot dog contest, of course, will roll on July 4th in Coney Island. Meanwhile, from Joey Chestnut to Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey on August the 16th is going to be on the cover of NFL 25 Madden. That's right. The 49ers running back was announced by EA Sports yesterday. He's the first Niner on the cover in the player-centric era. He's also the first running back to be on the cover since Adrian Peterson and Barry Sanders, and is the first non-quarterback to be on the cover since Antonio Brown in 2018. In addition, it should be noted that Christian McCaffrey will probably be the number one overall fantasy football pick once again this year. Now, everyone says, and I'm going to bring it up too here, that there's some sort of Madden curse. And I guess if you look at the last 20 years of Madden covers, or 25 years, there have been a lot of players that things have happened to. There's no question. But this is the National Football League, and injuries just happen. I think, by the way, if you were to take away the cover of Madden and say, let's not talk about who is on the cover, let's see who finishes second, I would guess that guy would have all kinds of issues as well. It's football. Guys get hurt. Things happen. It's sports. So do I believe in a Madden curse? No, I do not. I believe it's a very, very violent sport. The players get hurt in and don't perform because of injury. It's not necessarily their fault. The sport's just very, very tough. So forget your Madden curse. All right, finally, PGA Championship winner Xander Schauffele, speaking with CBS Sports analyst Colt Noss, talked about a round of golf that he had recently with, guess who? Michael Jordan. That's right. Xander played against Michael, and he said it was embarrassing. Why was it embarrassing? Is because he was playing very well against Michael Jordan. He was kicking his you-know-what. He said, I pancaked him on his stroke holes, and I started talking bleep to him. I don't know if I can curse here, so I'm not going to do it. Then all of a sudden, Jordan got all focused. He beat Xander on 15. He beat Xander on 16, and he ended up winning against him. And he was like, all right, I've learned my lesson. So look, the bottom line is that Michael Jordan is the most competitive athlete of all time, okay? I mean, this guy retired and came back, retired to play baseball and then came back and played for the Washington Wizards, okay? You do not try Michael Jordan. Anybody who has learned that for a long time should know better. Xander found out the hard way. This is the winner of the PGA Championship, by the way, from a few weeks ago. All right, that'll do it for our show today. I want to thank our guests on the program, Jim Gazzale and Simon Applebaum, of course, as well as Gilbert McGregor. Also, thanks to our associate producer, Frank, and our producer, Michael Cohen. Coming up next is Pharrell, Coast to Coast at 3 o'clock Eastern. That follows our early line appearance, Game Time Decisions at 6, in-game live primetime at 8, Sports Rage tonight with Gabe at 10 p.m. Eastern. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you back right here tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire, as we recap Game 3 of the NBA Finals and preview the next game in the NHL. See you then.